Build Your Own Time Machine. It's clearly a clickbait title. Hopefully it doesn't attract viewers that are actually looking for a real time machine. But anyways, this is the first vlog from my new iPhone 11 Pro. So I'm still fiddling with the settings, but we'll see how it goes. I was thinking about this recently because I am going to give a talk that I give several times a year called like HCI and design jobs for new college graduates. It's a talk I usually give to as a guest lecture to like usually first and second year students, just to get them thinking about how to prepare for getting their resumes ready, how to prepare for going on the job market and applying for jobs. So I think the point of this, how to build a time machine or building your own time machine, is that one thing I want to try to add to this talk, which is something very general advice, not related to getting a design or HCI or UX, whatever job at all, for any kind of career path and even life, I guess, is that you could build your own time machine by finding people who are several years ahead of you in whatever you want to do. So try to find people who are 3 years ahead of you or 5 years ahead of you, or at most maybe 10. Like people who are more than 10 years ahead of you, you can't really relate to them, or they grew up in a different time, in a different era. So it's not as useful. But I think the sweet spot is like 5 years ahead of you. People who are 5 years ahead of you, you can still kind of relate to them, but they're far ahead enough that they've seen a lot. And the idea there is that if you can find several people who are several years ahead of you and talk to them about their experiences, about how they got where they did, what they thought their shortcomings were, their mistakes were, what they did well, what they didn't do well, you can start building up a profile of what I call possible futures for yourself, right? That, trying to talk to a bunch of people who are around 5 years ahead of you, you can see some people who've had good outcomes, some people who've had okay outcomes, some people who've had not so good outcomes. And good is defined by your own metric, right? Whatever you're trying to optimize for. And I think it's interesting because those people are kind of your glimpse into possible futures. So you're like, oh, if I do these things, maybe I'll end up on this path more, or I'll end up on this path, on this other path. Of course, it's not guaranteed, right? These people are different from you. They have different backgrounds. They have different histories. They have different abilities, different personalities or whatever. So you can't just straight up emulate what they do, right? I'm not saying you should just find people and then emulate exactly what they do. That's not a great idea. But I think that collecting evidence from people who are several, 3, 5, up to 10 years ahead of you in their, say, careers, will give you this really interesting glimpse into the possible future for yourself. And I think that it's sort of like building a time machine, because it's sort of like you can see into the future so that you can make some decisions now or make changes now so that it could propagate into your own future. Because what I found is that once the time comes for a lot of people, once you are in that 5 year ahead of mark, 5 years from now, fast forward, it's very hard to make changes to what you should have done. You're like, oh, I should have done this 5 years ago, but I didn't know to. But the thing is, you can, again, build a time machine and preview your own future, possible future, by talking to people who are 3 or 5 or up to 10 years ahead of you. And I feel that people who can do that well will just have such a leg up on their peers, because they're able to actually, in a sense, have a time machine, right? Like, obviously we can't have a real time machine, but if you can just find those people, just so important to find those people. And I think that when you're a student or when you're just starting out your career, it's actually pretty easy to find those people, because by definition, there's a lot of them, right? If you're just out of college, people who are 5 years out of college, there's a lot of them, and they probably can relate to you. They may be older siblings, older family friends, classmates, people you used to live with, your teaching assistants from your classes. You can really find those people, track them down, keep in touch with them, whether online or in person, just chat with them. I think it's a great idea. And as you get older, it's going to be harder and harder to find those people who are ahead of you to kind of build your own time machine. So that's why I really encourage people, especially when you're starting a career, find those people ahead of you, build your own time machine. And of course, take everybody's words with a grain of salt, right? Like, everybody is biased and they have their own sorts of biases and stuff. But I think just collecting that data from a bunch of people is important. And the final thing here is, if you can't find people in person, you can try to find people online who are blogging about it, making YouTube videos about it, writing, newsletters or other sorts of online media about their experiences. That's fine, but I wanted you to just caution that there's a big bias of people who are writing online. Right? So people who are usually writing online might be more opinionated or more extreme or more of an outlier in a certain way. So, take online things, especially you see in discussion forums or YouTube videos, with a grain of salt. But I think it's also good data to collect, right? It's all, again, just collecting data for yourself about what possible futures you could see for yourself given a certain career path, let's say. And being able to see in the future will just help you make those decisions now so that you could increase the chances of being in a better position once that 5 years comes and once you are in that future zone. Of course, there's no guarantees, right? I mean, obviously, there's no real time machines, and you just following a recipe doesn't mean something's gonna happen. But I think it's a lot better to look ahead and have your own time machine than just to rely on just people just around you, because people your own age haven't seen ahead, right? So, anyways, that was a quick one, but just think about building your own time machine. Okay, till next time.